Hey y'all, it's WebCamParrot, and today I wanted to talk about a somewhat unusual but weirdly kind of hype matchup, that being Post-Crisis Superman vs Al Simmons' Spawn. I've gone over both characters in quite a lot of detail before. Superman in my The True Strength of Post-Crisis Superman video and Analyzing Superman at his Most Powerful video, and Spawn in my The Absurd Powers of Spawn video. So if these characters interest you, you can go and watch those videos after this one for more context. I'll go over several various versions of each, gradually using stronger and stronger forms for both. The versions of Spawn I will be using are Classic Spawn, Post-Metamorphosis Spawn, Hell King Spawn, and God Spawn. For Superman, I'll be using his normal suppressed state, a full power seriously trying Superman, Superman in the Theta State, and the story of Superman power. To start off with, let's talk about a suppressed post-crisis Superman. This is the Superman we usually see, especially with the Justice League. He often knowingly holds back, and even has a subconsciously ingrained mental block that prevents him from using his full power. Despite this, however, he is still incredibly powerful, clearly scaling to a large number of universal feats and characters. In my first video on the topic, I put this number at 66 different feats, but myself and others have found several more since then. He tanked the energy coming from the core of the Doomslayer's ship, which is its own entire universe, and has defeated Solaris many times. Solaris is a being whose body contains several Tesseracts, which are higher dimensional objects. Superman and Ultraman together were able to destroy one of Mandrak's destroyers, which are powered by universes, and was able to trade blows with pre-crisis Mordru, who has the power to bind universes, and a bunch of incredibly high-end scaling to pre-crisis characters on this level, like Dr. Fate. I did my own video on Mordru recently that you can check out for context on that. Post-Crisis Superman also defeated some extra-dimensional vampires, and was able to combat a Tesseract unit that was the embodiment of everything that Superman feared in one being. A Tesseract, once again, being a high-dimensional object. I could go on for several minutes just listing universal feats for Superman, so I'll leave it there. As a result of both this, and Superman's incredible speeds, which I'll get to later, most of the earlier versions of Spawn, like his classic variant or post-metamorphic variants, just don't stand a chance against the Man of Steel. Al Simmons' only saving grace would be his regeneration, which for classic Spawn is limited, and so Superman just needs to fight him until the regeneration runs out to win. Post-metamorphosis is more difficult, as his regen is not limited in the same way and can basically go forever. The Man of Tomorrow still has numerous ways to overcome this, however. Post-metamorphosis Spawn has shown the ability to return his entire physical body being erased, but we can't exactly say the same of his soul, which is something that Superman would be able to attack directly thanks to the numerous occasions where his heat vision has been shown to be effective on souls. On top of this, Superman has encountered similar, if not superior regeneration powers before in the form of Doomsday, which he ultimately responded to by taking his opponent to the end of time and leaving him there to constantly die to the entropy of the Time Trapper. Time Trapper won't be there to help the Man of Steel in this fight, but that doesn't matter, as this version of Spawn has no way to return from this and would effectively be stuck at the end of time. The next version of Spawn I would like to talk about is a completely different story, however. We tend to call this variant Hell King Spawn, as it represents the power that Spawn gained after he became the king of the 8th Circle of Hell. Al Simmons, as a King of Hell, has the power to recreate or destroy the entire 8th Realm of Hell, which is its own infinite-sized universe. And, on top of this, for every beat of his heart, he grows 100 times more powerful, definitely giving him the edge in raw attack power. On top of this, in his Hell King state, he now scales to an angel who is capable of reacting in non-linear time frames, giving him the speed to keep up with Superman. We call this immeasurable speed, and is basically achieved when a character is capable of moving so fast that he travels through time due to sheer speed alone, something Superman has done countless times. Now, to be honest, I could make endless arguments for either this suppressed Superman or Spawn being significantly above what we would call baseline immeasurable speed, as they have both been shown to be far faster than other immeasurable speed characters. Actually explaining all of these steps would be far too much, however, and so much of it would be down to interpretation that I would be here for far too long trying to convince you all one way or the other of, and it's likely that they would end up fairly close in speed regardless. So I'm simply going to move forwards assuming that these two characters are equal in speed. This speed also renders Spawn's ability to time stop moot, as both characters are so fast that they can move easily whilst no time passes at all. This ability to move through time via sheer speed also stops Superman from just leaving Spawn at the end of time. Given Hell-King Spawn's ability to rapidly adapt and grow stronger, as well as his advantage in regeneration, it's unlikely that a suppressed Superman would be able to do anything to this version of Spawn. Spawn's spiritual durability should also scale to his regular durability, preventing Superman from using his heat vision to simply burn his soul out, and so I'll have to move on to the next version of the Man of Steel, as this one is no match. That would be full power post-crisis Superman, or more correctly, Superman using his full strength and without his subconscious mind block. This is something that Superman rarely if ever uses, and only ever against some of his most powerful enemies like Doomsday, Soulfire Darkseid, and the conceptual embodiment of his own death. Superman in this state is wildly more powerful than his previous state, to the point where a Soulfire Darkseid, who was potentially 2 duo-trigintillion times stronger than his normal state, that's a 2 followed by 100 zeros times stronger, was harmed by a Superman who was holding back far more than the full power Superman we are talking about right now. Despite Hell-King Spawn's ability to grow in power, he simply would never have the time to approach this level. On top of this, Superman was shown capable of harming the conceptual embodiment of his own death early on in their fight, giving him attacks that would work on a conceptual level or a level beyond even the spiritual, something that Spawn has no defense against. He could also resort to his Superman Blue transformation and simply drain Spawn of all his power, an ability that works on a level beyond even Parasite's, who himself would be able to affect Spawn with his draining. But raw power isn't everything, and perhaps some of Spawn's other numerous abilities will be enough to pull this back for him. For one, he is capable of his own spiritual attacks, as he can produce a strange astral acid that can burn away another character's soul until it is nothing. This, unfortunately for Spawn, would not work, as Superman has been able to fight even after his humanity, emotions, and soul have been removed. This didn't even seem to weaken him at all, as he was perfectly capable of combating Doomsday in this state, but he was behaving a little strangely. Superman also directly tanked attacks on his soul from both the gods and Etrigan before, despite them both using magic to do so, something he is typically viewed as weak to in a sense. So he's not really vulnerable to this soul-based strategy at all. Even if Spawn tried to bring the infinite souls he had within his body to bear, and subject Superman to infinite suffering using his mind-based abilities, this would just give Superman the opportunity to utterly defeat him, as Superman Blue has dealt with this exact type of attack before. He was able to enter a magical device containing countless souls, where he resisted the sorrows of infinite loss and drew upon the strength of his unique soul to wrap his will around the device, expelling and freeing every soul from within. This would leave Hell-King Spawn significantly depowered, if not outright powerless or even dead. Spawn's ability to manifest the evil within his opponent's hearts as enemies they must fight would likewise be ineffective on the goody-goody two-shoes Superman. Spawn has access to mind hacks as well, and has a tremendous willpower, as Alcimmons was able to withstand the suffering of everyone on Earth, but again, this would not work on Superman. Even a Sirius Mixie and Arion, a wizard with mind hacks powerful enough to affect the Great Evil Beast, a rival of the Presence, couldn't crack Superman. So Spawn, or anyone in Image Comics for that matter, has absolutely no hope of ever defeating him with their mind-based abilities. I somewhat covered Arian in my Mordry video, so if you're interested you can watch that for more context. Spawn can also go intangible, but again, Superman can fight literal abstract concepts and has his own intangibility, so it's doubtful that this would be useful at all. Spawn is also capable of sending others to hell using his cape, but Superman has travelled between universes and other realms numerous times, and can even create boom tubes of his own, allowing him to return from things like this easily. Against a character far more powerful than him, and one that none of his abilities work against, Spawn doesn't really have a chance. So I'll have to move from Hell King Spawn onto the next version of Spawn, which is often called Divine Spawn, and essentially has power on par with Image Comics' God and Satan, beings who are able to create the several different universes within Heaven and Hell. Although stronger, this Spawn doesn't gain anything that would allow him to survive against a full-power Superman, and is basically effectively the same as Hell King Spawn, so I'll just move on to the last and most powerful version of Spawn that only appeared after he merged with the Mother of Existence. I'm going to call this Spawn God Spawn. This variant of Spawn is one with the Man of Miracles, the supreme being in Spawn. It has created an infinite number of beings just as powerful as God or Satan, and is one with everything, possessing the power to change the very concepts of reality itself. A not holding back Superman is certainly stronger than Image Comics' God or Satan, but we can't really say that he could stand up to infinite gods or Satans, as well as the Man of Miracles Spawn now being protected from Superman's conceptual attacks thanks to his own concept manipulation. All of Godspawn's previous abilities are also vastly improved, and he now has access to power now potent enough to turn beings as strong as God or Satan into powerless children, making it pretty clear that a full-power Superman won't be enough to defeat Godspawn. But there are two more variants of post-crisis Superman that I would still like to talk about. The Theta State, and what I would typically call the story of Superman. Superman is capable of dragging himself and those around him into a mental battlefield using a martial art known as Torquasm Vo. As I said earlier, Superman's mental prowess is immense, and is far beyond anything that even Godspawn could hope to challenge. After entering the Theta State, Superman was capable of combating Dominus, an incredibly powerful reality warper. Dominus is the being responsible for the existence of Kingdom Come, which is its own creation, similar in size to the regular DC creation, and contains a Godsphere, Apocalypse, and its own, stronger Trueform Darkseid. This absolutely immense amount of power is just absurdly beyond anything Godspawn could even remotely come close to. You can watch my Explaining DC's Multiverse and Beyond video for an explanation of exactly how powerful Scale into Creation would make Dominus. I don't have time, unfortunately, to explain that all now, but let's just say the creation of infinite multiversal beings, which is the best feat in the entire Spawn verse, doesn't even come close to this. Being able to just create your own more powerful Darkseid out of nothing is pretty damn OP, as it turns out. And considering this is a mental battlefield, this might actually be downplay for how strong Superman would be if he used the Theta State on Spawn. But even this immense power of the Theta State is nothing compared to Superman using the full power of the story of Superman. The story of Superman is basically plot manipulation on a massive scale, and is one of the most powerful things in DC. It's a force that Superman could potentially tap into at any time, but he has only ever had to fully utilize this power once, which I will talk about in a minute. The most obvious example of why the story of Superman is so powerful comes from a statement by Retcon Corporation. I've talked about these guys before in my Doom Patrol video as well as my DC Multiverse video, so I'll just go over them more briefly here. Retcon are basically responsible for the management of stories within DC, and use these stories in order to appease the Eonymous, a race of gods who would destroy everything, the Overvoid and Final Heaven, a realm beyond the Overvoid, included. Retcon themselves have a button that is capable of wiping the page, otherwise known as the Overvoid, completely clean. However, despite this immense narrative power, they are completely unable to alter the story of Superman at all. Superman would use the power of the story of Superman towards the end of his fight with the manifestation of his own death, who repeatedly tried to use his death manipulation to kill Superman. Death would manufacture a reality where a cybernetic Lex Luthor existed that knew everything about Clark Kent being Superman, a Lex Superman could never defeat, and a world without Lois. This was all in an attempt to make Superman lose hope and give himself up to his own death. The story of Superman would simply adapt above this, however, rewriting reality to one where Superman could win. Next, Superman's death would create a reality where Ma and Pa Kent were dead, and age Superman, rapidly turning him into an old man. But this was still not enough, with Death saying that everything else in creation follows the natural cycle and will eventually die, but he still cannot kill Superman. In fact, these attempts only made Superman stronger and more resolute. Death would go on to destroy and kill everything in creation, and still Superman lives on. Death would kill Hope, saying that with the death of Hope, so dies Superman, and yet Superman would live on. The story of Superman would then allow the Man of Steel to transcend death and reach an existence that makes all of creation look like nothing but a dream. He would travel beyond the barriers of time, space, and emotion to return home, where he would one-shot his own death. The Man of Steel would then question whether this was an illusion, and his own death would tell him that it was not, although he could believe so if he wanted to. That everything that had happened in a place where mind and matter intersect, and that death had changed as a result of this too. As the universe died, Death felt an emptiness in his soul, and searched for a reason to go on himself. He searched for hope, and found it in Superman. As a result, Death would thank Superman, and in being freed from his own death, so too would Death be freed. Bear in mind that Death has explicitly said that even the Presence will one day die, and that she will claim him, but not Superman. Superman is beyond that. At least with the story of Superman. I'll just quickly address this dumb idea that some people have, that this Where Is Thy Sting Superman story is just a dream or illusion to Superman. But as you can pretty clearly see, Death explicitly says that it's not, and that Superman believing that is just his own fancy. Also, Superman transcending creation and realizing that everything in creation is just an illusion from this perspective is not the same as it being like a dream to him. It's just a transcendent state that he achieved. In any case, the power from the story of Superman that he was wielding in this comic is only a fraction of its true potential. Superman would first fully utilize this power in Final Crisis, when he would don the cosmic armor. The Thought Robot, or Cosmic Armor, is the direct embodiment of the hyperstory of Superman itself, and it exists as a creation of the Overvoid. When the Monitor Mind, the Overvoid, first noticed creation, it encountered the story of Superman, which began to infect it rapidly. It was stated that the Overvoid had no defense against it, and so sealed it up with divine metals, which would ultimately become the cosmic armor. Hopefully, I don't have to explain why a Superman utilizing power that might even be beyond the Thought Robot or the Overvoid itself would be too much for Godspawn. He has simply no defense whatsoever against this type of narrative attack. In conclusion, Spawn makes it pretty damn far against post-crisis Superman, especially in his higher forms, basically forcing Superman to access the absolute peak of his powers and abilities, a strength that he normally only reserves for some of DC's biggest hitters. I think some of the lower matchups are particularly interesting, like Hell King or Divine Spawn against a Superman who isn't holding back. Spawn is definitely a powerhouse, but he just can't hold up to DC's Golden Boy. Anyway, that's it for this one. I hope you all enjoyed it. If this video inspired you to purchase any comics at all, please use the affiliate links I will leave in the comments to support the channel and what I do here. A video on Starro and a video on Superboy Prime is in the works, so look forward to that, and otherwise, I will see you all in the next one.